On the morning of June 30th, 1908, the world was unaware that it was about to witness an unprecedented cosmic event. Deep in the heart of Siberia, near the Podkamenaya Tunguska River, lay millions of acres of pristine, uninhabited forest. This was a land of quiet solitude, where the sounds of nature were the only disturbance for hundreds of miles. Indigenous Evenki people, nomadic reindeer herders, were the only human presence in this immense, isolated landscape. Their daily lives were deeply connected to the rhythms of the earth and the sky, a connection soon to be profoundly shaken. The air was still, the sun was rising. It was a morning like any other in this remote corner of the globe. But high above the atmosphere, something was approaching Earth at an incredible velocity, on a direct course with this silent wilderness. No telescopes were watching, no alarms were raised. Humanity was completely oblivious to the impending celestial encounter. The stage was set for a cosmic drama of unimaginable scale, played out before an audience of trees and sky. In just a few moments, the peace of this ancient forest would be shattered by a force from beyond our world. Suddenly, the morning sky was torn asunder. Eyewitnesses as far as 400 miles away reported a dazzling column of light. They described it as brighter than the sun, moving silently and swiftly across the horizon, casting strange, moving shadows. Farmers working in their fields stopped and stared, shielding their eyes from the unnatural brilliance that had appeared in the heavens. The object was described as a fiery, cylindrical shape, trailing smoke and radiating an intense, unbearable heat even from afar. For those closer to its path, the light was followed by a sound like a deafening thunderclap or a barrage of artillery. Windows rattled and broke in the town of Vanavara, over 40 miles away from the epicenter of the coming event. The object, likely an asteroid or comet fragment, was traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour as it plunged deeper. As it descended, atmospheric pressure and friction caused it to superheat, creating a spectacle of terrifying beauty. This was not a gentle arrival, it was a violent intrusion from the cosmos, a messenger of immense power. And then, at an altitude of approximately 5 to 10 kilometers, the unthinkable happened. The object did not impact, it detonated. In a fraction of a second, the object disintegrated in a massive airburst, releasing an incredible amount of energy into the atmosphere. The energy released was estimated to be 10 to 15 megatons, roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima atomic device. A thermal pulse of searing heat radiated outwards, igniting treetops and setting fire to the dry forest floor below. This was followed by a cataclysmic shockwave, an invisible wall of pressure expanding at supersonic speed. The ground itself heaved and shook as if from a powerful earthquake, knocking people and animals off their feet hundreds of miles away. The sound was immense, a series of deafening booms that would circle the entire globe not once, but twice. A colossal column of smoke and debris ascended miles into the stratosphere, forming a mushroom-shaped cloud. For a moment, the remote Siberian sky held a terrifying spectacle of fire, light, and raw, untamed power. The event was over in seconds, but its consequences would reshape the landscape and create a mystery for the ages. The second sun had vanished, leaving behind a profound and eerie silence in the heart of the taiga. As the shockwave tore through the forest, it met the ancient trees. The result was near total devastation. An estimated 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 square kilometers were instantly flattened by the blast wave. They fell in a radial pattern, like spokes on a gigantic wheel, their broken trunks all aimed away from the epicenter. The area of flattened forest was larger than modern-day London, a city-sized area leveled in the blink of an eye. Fires raged across the scorched landscape, consuming the fallen timber and adding to the thick, choking smoke in the air. Herds of reindeer in the area were incinerated by the heat or swept away by the immense pressure wave. The sky, once blue, was now a murky, unsettling canvas of brown and gray dust that blotted out the sun. This dust and ice from the disintegrated object were thrown high into the upper atmosphere, where they would soon circle the globe. What was once a thriving ecosystem had been transformed into a silent, smoldering wasteland in a matter of moments. But the effects of this remote Siberian event were not confined to the taiga. They were about to be seen worldwide. In the days and nights that followed, a strange phenomenon occurred thousands of miles away from the epicenter. Skies over Asia and Europe began to glow with an eerie, silvery light long after the sun had set. The high-altitude dust and ice crystals from the airburst were reflecting sunlight back down to the darkened side of Earth. This created what are known as noctilucent, or night-shining, clouds on an unprecedented scale. People in London reported being able to read newspapers outdoors at midnight without the need for artificial light. Astronomical observatories found it impossible to conduct their work, as the night sky was never truly dark. At the time, no one connected these strange bright nights with the remote Siberian event. The cause was a complete mystery. Barographs around the world had also registered the atmospheric pressure wave, but the data was not yet pieced together. The world was witnessing the global fingerprints of the Tunguska event without understanding what they were seeing. It would take years and a dedicated, arduous expedition before the true source of these phenomena was even suspected. Due to the region's remoteness and political turmoil in Russia, it wasn't until 1927 that the first scientific expedition set out. Led by mineralogist Leonid Kulik, the team was searching for a massive iron meteorite he believed had impacted the area. The journey itself was an immense challenge, a testament to the harshness of the Siberian wilderness. They traveled for weeks by train, horse-drawn sleigh, and finally on foot, facing freezing temperatures and treacherous terrain. Kulik interviewed local Evenki hunters who spoke of a fiery cataclysm that had swept away the forest years before. Their stories, filled with awe and dread, confirmed he was on the right path, pushing him deeper into the wilderness. As they neared the suspected location, the landscape began to change in unsettling ways, a prelude to what they would find. The healthy, towering taiga gave way to a swampy, difficult marshland with strangely stunted and scarred trees. Kulik and his team were the first outsiders to lay eyes on the zone of devastation, almost 2 decades after the event. What they found was stranger and more baffling than anything they could have possibly imagined. Before them lay a scene of utter desolation, a silent, petrified forest of toppled giants stretching to the horizon. The sheer scale was overwhelming, 80 million trees all pointing away from an invisible center like a compass needle. Kulik meticulously documented the scene, photographing the radial pattern that so clearly pointed to an aerial burst. As the team pushed towards the center of the devastation, a new, even stranger sight greeted them. At the very epicenter, the trees were not flattened. Instead, they stood upright, but with their branches and bark completely stripped away. This eerie collection of standing deadwood became known as the telegraph pole forest. The shockwave had come from directly above them, pushing straight down and stripping them bare rather than knocking them over. The evidence was undeniable. The source of the devastation had been in the air, not on the ground. This realization only deepened the central mystery. Kulik had come expecting to find the prize of a lifetime. He was searching for a massive meteorite, the impactor. But as he surveyed the epicenter, a baffling truth began to dawn. At the heart of the devastation, where the evidence of the aerial burst was strongest, Kulik expected to find his prize. He was searching for an impact crater, a giant bowl-shaped depression that should have been carved out by the meteorite. He searched. His team searched. They dug into the marshy soil, drained small bogs, and surveyed every inch of ground zero. But there was nothing. No crater, no disturbed earth. The ground was remarkably intact. Furthermore, they couldn't find any significant fragments of the object itself. No chunks of iron, no pieces of meteoric stone. This was the central, confounding paradox of the Tunguska event, all of the effects of a massive impact, but without the impact. How could something powerful enough to flatten a city-sized forest simply vanish without a trace? Kulik would return on several more expeditions, spending years of his life obsessed with finding an answer, but he never did. The lack of a crater and fragments fueled decades of speculation, from the mundane to the truly extraordinary. But science would eventually provide a compelling, if not complete, explanation for the vanishing object. Today, the leading scientific consensus points to one of 2 likely culprits, a stony asteroid or a small comet. Unlike a strong iron meteorite, a stony asteroid is far more fragile. It can't withstand the immense forces of atmospheric entry. As it plunged through the air, the pressure difference between its front and back would have caused it to catastrophically disintegrate. This sudden breakup would convert its incredible kinetic energy into a massive thermal and shockwave, an aerial burst. The entire object, estimated to be 50 to 60 meters wide, would have been vaporized before ever touching the ground. The comet theory is similar. Comets are essentially dirty snowballs, composed of ice, dust, and rock. An object made mostly of ice would be even more prone to vaporization, leaving behind even less physical evidence. The vast amount of water vapor and ice crystals thrown into the stratosphere would also perfectly explain the glowing night skies. So the crater wasn't missing. It was never created. The devastation was painted on the landscape by the sky itself. This explanation fits the evidence, turning the Tunguska event from a mystery into a chilling cautionary tale. Today, the Tunguska site is slowly recovering. New trees grow amidst the fallen giants of 1908. But the event serves as a stark and powerful reminder of our planet's place in a dynamic cosmic environment. It was the largest impact event in recorded history, a 1-in-1,000-year occurrence that humanity was lucky to witness from a distance. Had the object arrived just a few hours later, its path would have taken it over populated areas of Europe or Russia. The consequences of a Tunguska-sized airburst over a major city are almost unimaginable. The loss of life would be catastrophic. This is why the study of Tunguska is so vital. It's the blueprint for understanding and preparing for future threats. Programs to detect and track near-Earth objects are our planetary defense system, inspired by events just like this one. The Tunguska event was not an attack, but an accident. A random encounter in the vastness of space. It left no crater on the ground, but it left a permanent impression on the human psyche. A reminder that the quiet sky above us is not always as peaceful as it seems.